Hey, folks. Well, it looks like Wizards of the Coast is once again courting controversy, this time with some changes they've made to how they offer Dungeons & Dragons digital content through their D&D Beyond service. But before we get into that, if you haven't already, please do click the subscribe button, click the bell icon for notifications about this type of video and about our live streams, which we bring you 5 nights a week for classic D&D tabletop discussion, live plays, rants, and interviews. I would really appreciate it. All right, so let's take a look at this. This actually comes to us from Screen Rant. I guess if it's got a screen, they'll rant about it. I remember when they used to just be about movies. But let's go ahead and take a look at this article that has people up in arms, or rather, the news in the article that has people up in arms. And this is from Lee D'Amato. New D&D Beyond change just made playing Dungeons & Dragons a lot worse. D&D Beyond no longer allows players to buy individual items or bundles, forcing them to purchase entire source books instead. Players will have limited character options and higher prices, discouraging new players and increasing costs for existing players. These changes have sparked controversy among the community, with some players upset over the increased costs and restrictions on customization. And to dive into the meat of the article here, Wizards of the Coast official online Dungeons & Dragons marketplace just made a very unpopular decision. D&D Beyond is the premier online store for D&D products. Through it, players can purchase physical or digital copies of D&D core rulebooks, sourcebooks, campaign settings, and just about anything else they might need to run a game. What sets D&D Beyond apart from other online shopping outlets, besides its direct connection to Wizards of the Coast, is its integration with gameplay tools. In short, anything players buy on D&D Beyond, they can use in its character creation and mapping software. But D&D Beyond just got a huge redesign. That's not a bad thing in and of itself, but due to some changes around how purchasing works, D&D finds itself mired in controversy yet again. The new changes are unfair to players and will almost certainly affect many individual games and the wider community in a negative way. D&D Beyond just removed the ability to purchase a la carte items and bundles. Players now have to purchase entire source books instead. With the new site changes, players are no longer able to buy bundles or a la carte items from D&D Beyond. They'll have to buy entire books instead. Previous versions of D&D Beyond allowed players to purchase only those parts of the source book they were interested in. They could buy a single race, class, feat, background, or monster stat block, or in some cases, bundle a few together for a slight discount. Now, though, if a player wants even one element of a source book, they'll have to pay full price for downloading the entire thing. And they do make a note here that D&D Beyond still honors any previous a la carte bundle purchases, even if the items within haven't come out yet. However, some players have reported their purchases need to be resynced after the marketplace change. That's probably just a technical thing. For examples, say a player wanted to give their character the Rune Shaper feat from Bigby Presents Glory of the Giants, but didn't care for anything else in the source book, found it irrelevant to the rest of their campaign. Put a pin in that. We're going to come back to that for a second, guys. Or didn't want to spend too much money on it. D&D Beyond would previously let them purchase just the Rune Shaper feat for a fraction of the price, at which point they'd be able to use it on any character sheets they'd made through D&D Beyond, or simply read the rules and apply them elsewhere. This would cost them roughly $2, and if they were interested in a couple of other elements from different source books, they might be able to bundle together a few together for a discount on all of them. In short, they'd be able to get a plethora of new character options for less than $10, and even if they decided not to use one in the end, it wouldn't be a huge loss. Since the recent changes, though, the same player would have to buy the entirety of Glory of the Giants at $29.99, even if they only want access to half of a page. Why D&D Beyond Marketplace's changes are a disaster for D&D. Limited character options, higher prices, and less frequent purchases. The D&D Beyond changes are incredibly unfair to players. Obviously, this is an opinion piece, but greatly restricting the customizability of their characters. Instead of having the ability to freely and inexpensively create their characters and settings for only a few dollars a pop, players now have to choose between limiting their options and spending tons of money. Players who want to take different character feats from a wide variety of source books will have to purchase them all individually instead of buying them individually or bundling them together. As a result, anyone who can't afford or simply doesn't want to buy the almost 50 books that have been published for D&D's 5th edition will likely limit themselves to character options from the player's handbook and maybe one or two preferred expansions they've collected over time. This will also pose another barrier to prevent new players from getting into the game. I don't agree with that. Prospective players who aren't even sure if they like D&D yet will be even more reluctant to explore the wide variety of character options available if they need to spend so much money to see them. The D&D Beyond changes will also do away with the practice of buying a source book in installments. Before the update, if a player was building a Dragonborn based on the contents of Fizban's theory of Treasury of Dragons, they would start with just one of the draconic ancestries at first level. Over time, they could purchase more of the book as they leveled up a couple spells here, a feat there, until they own practically the entire thing. Eventually, they'd be able to credit these smaller transactions towards their purchase of the entire source book, receiving an equivalent discount. And a note again here, it says players who've previously purchased a la carte items from the source book can still apply the equivalent discount when buying the full thing. However, they'll now have to contact D&D Beyond's customer service to do it. These changes seem geared at making WotC even more money, but they may have the opposite effect. There's always been a subsection of hardcore D&D fans willing to buy entire source books, even if they're not going to use everything that's contained inside. The D&D Beyond changes shouldn't affect their purchasing patterns, but will disincentivize all other kinds of marketplace shopping. Most other players will be less willing to spend money on entire source books if they just want individual character options. Without the ability to purchase them separately, they're likely to look elsewhere, choosing character options they can get for free instead. As a result, the total number of purchases from the D&D Beyond marketplace could go down, ultimately cutting into WotC's bottom line. These D&D Beyond changes are the latest in a long line of scandals. It's not a scandal, guys. Related to the tabletop RPG, which have had varying results for the game and its community. This latest development has already provoked an uproar, with players on social media and the official D&D Beyond forum airing their grievances. Thankfully, WotC has demonstrated some willingness to listen to the feedback, especially with last year's D&D OGL fiasco. Hopefully, it'll do the same for the marketplace changes before they permanently impact the Dungeons and Dragons landscape. So let's digest this for a minute, guys. First of all, I want to go back to what I had said earlier. I said we're going to stick a pin in something. And that is basically that is in general this idea of scooping up disparate bits and pieces and how unfair this is to players. Guys, I'm going to say something. Look, you guys know I'm not a fan of Wizards of the Coast. I'm not a huge fan of Wizards of the Coast at all. I think what they've done with D&D and their approach has been a net negative for reasons I have talked about at great length before. But rather than rehashing that, let me tell you why I think this is, quite frankly, a positive thing. Dungeons and Dragons is not about an a la carte power building experience. It is an avatar-based game. It is a game where you roll with the DM's campaign world. Since the days of the original wood grain D&D set, it has been a bane for dungeon masters when players would show up with characters from Arduin, from even Supplement 1 Greyhawk if the DM didn't have it, from Judges Guild products, from Alorum's and Excursion, even from the House Organ, the Strategic Review, and later the Dragon. when the DM didn't have access to those things, or when other players didn't have access to those things. What do you mean I can't play this new Ranger class that just came out? It's right here in black and white. Let me play it, for goodness sake. A DM sets the campaign world in motion and defines how things work. And a player coming in with something that the DM maybe hasn't had a chance to vet, he doesn't know if it's going to fit his world, but they say, hey, no, look, I purchased this. That is a curse. That is a curse that could upend a campaign. And just because you, as a player, decided to throw a credit card at a problem and get a little bit more power than the other players around you, that can be incredibly disruptive to a game. Now, as far as the matter of a DM or a player having to purchase a whole source book and this putting new players off the game, I don't think so. I think, personally, the baseline for a game should be Dungeon Master's Guide, Player's Handbook, Monster Manual, and build out from there. The article talked about 50 some source books. 50 source books for 5th edition. That is a huge fire hose for a DM to have to try and drink from. Never mind players. The idea that this might slow down the arms race for both DMs and players, in my opinion, is nothing but good. Because it'll help people take a step back and enjoy what is in their campaign, whether they're the DM running it or they're the players playing in it. And every time Patch Tuesday rolls around and a new sheaf of characters comes out, and you have players grabbing their phones and spending 99 cents or $1 or something like that, and then the following weekend, the DM is inundated with ideas which frankly might not have been playtested very well at all by Wizards of the Coast that could disrupt and upend their game. Putting a halt to that, in my opinion, is a good thing. Now, as far as, oh no, one person purchased this and nobody else can, show it to other people. Share it with them. Take a screenshot. If you're still that enamored of doing this, hey, just hand the source book around the table. It's not difficult to overcome this, guys. I'm not saying I want there to be a higher barrier of entry to anyone playing Dungeons and Dragons. I just feel like DMs would probably like a little bit more consistency other than Johnny or Janie credit card rolling into the game with a bevy of purchases that might not fit your campaign. And you might, as a DM, might not have had time to fully examine. Or on the flip side, you come to the game and the DM said, hey, I just bought this, and this, and you've never heard of these monsters before, but they're now in my campaign. Cope. The arms race in D&D tabletop has got to slow down a little bit, guys. It's got to. Again, I'm not a fan of Wizards of the Coast. I'm not necessarily a fan of what they do. But I want to know what you guys think. So leave a comment below. If you're playing current year D&D, do you think this is a good thing? Do you think it's a bad thing? Because honestly, the arms race has been going on since the beginning. I know, I was there. And even as an AD&D player, I still have folks come to me and say, hey, do you remember this class from Dragon Magazine? I want to run a character in that. Nope. I might remember the class from Dragon or from some other source, but that doesn't necessarily mean I've had time to fully digest and absorb it. So I think maybe putting the brakes on it a little bit is a good thing. But of course, I want to know what you guys think. Leave a comment below. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you don't like the video, give it a thumbs down. But regardless, tell me what you think. Thank you very much, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.